Madam Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I also want to thank my brother, the good senator from Bomet, for seeing it fit that I second this motion. I think, Madam Speaker, there is no any other important bill, in my view, that can be of serious attention to us than the bill that is at the backbone of this report that the joint committee that looked at this report from the National Assembly and our Assembly and our Senate have worked on. And my reasoning is very simple, Madam Speaker. My reasoning is that all the problems of this country lies on what this report and the subsequent bill, or rather the mediated version of the bill, agrees on. All our problems as a country comes from this problem of conflict of interest. Madam Speaker, there is a report called the Ndegwa report, the Ndegwa Commission report. And the Ndegwa Commission report, Madam Speaker, was presented to Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, the first president of Kenya, in May 1971. That report is available online, and I think that is also within our answers as Parliament. And the 398-page report, Madam Speaker, is a very, very rich report. It's a report that is as rich as the section of paper that were written by amazing patriots like Tom Boyer. But there is a part of that report that I think has been seriously disastrous to our country. And part of that report was when the Ndegwa Commission report suggested that civil servants can be able to do business while in government. This is our biggest problem, Madam Speaker, as a country. And despite the good intention that was put in that report, because when you read that report, some of the best professors wrote that report, and I find it extremely rich in terms of just rethinking the public service structure, as well as just rethinking the remuneration of public servants, because you remember, Madam Speaker, that before 1971, public servants in this country used to earn the lowest amount of money. And alongside that, they were really not allowed to do business because service was exactly that. Service was public service. You're called to duty, and you are able to do what you're called to do as a public servant for the nation. But the remuneration was very, very shallow. But, Madam Speaker, the moment this country opened an opportunity for the public servants in this country to be able to do business and create great wealth for themselves, it did not just stop at the idea of participating in the free market economy. It also meant that public servants would then go ahead and engage in doing business with government. And that is where the rot of this country started. The problem is that years later, it has become now an endemic problem in our budget-making process, especially when you think about Parliament and the executives. And this problem is not only within the national government and the national assemblies, that is the Senate and the National Assembly as is known in Parliament, but it's also now becoming a serious replica even in the county, in the county structure, in the devolved units of this country, where the budgeting process is made by the civil servants having queued and having secured a number of procurement opportunities that defrays the public from the services that they need in a various number of ways that can only become synonymous to porosity of serious resources getting into government, but the public can just never see where this money is going. Madam Speaker, it is easy today for Gen Zs and the younger generation to fight the symptoms of why our country is hemorrhaging in terms of serious taxations, but without service. But they can never get to the root cause of that problem if we don't give life to this report that is the first report that I see as an attempt to undo the wrongs of the Ndegwa Commission report. Because, Madam Speaker, if you look at other countries today, the countries that our young people are admiring, even if you take the Nordic countries, where young people are admiring when they look at the quality of good life, you'll find that, Madam Speaker, they are the countries that have got the highest form of taxation. But people there don't riot against taxation. People in those countries, citizens of those countries, never complain about any taxations. Why? Because tax raised by government goes and does what the country needs to do in terms of providing services for the population. Madam Speaker, you know that today, if you are in Norway, or if you're in Denmark, or if you are in Sweden, there are what we call services that are provided by government, but there's also what we call tax benefits. That even women in those countries today can go to work knowing very well that the government will even invest in the aftercare for their children when they are at work. But in our country today, the tax that is raised finds its way in the pocket of individuals by simple issue of civil servants doing business with government. This is the crust of what I call conflict of interest, that the others are not as bad as compared to this, Madam Speaker. Because today you come to Parliament and individuals have perfected the art of scavenging for what will be put in the budget tomorrow, on which road is going to belong to who, and which pseudo company am I going to put, including some proxies, that are then going to be able to supply or do a certain work for government, for which, because they are sitting at the seats of accountability, they cannot hold themselves to account. And nobody else can hold them to account, because the moment they have put a number of budgetary allocations to projects that they want to do with serious and dubious companies, then when it comes to this Parliament, they will sanitize themselves. And therefore, almost 70% of our taxes never go to do any job. Inflation in the procurement processes in this country, Madam Speaker, is an endemic problem that is becoming difficult to address. Because we have put in the DNA and the psyche of Kenyans that you actually you don't need to be an entrepreneur in this country. You don't need to think about enterprising economy. Because the simplest way to get to wealth, the simplest way to amass wealth, whether primitively or in a pseudo manner that you are hiding, is simply to join government. Whether you join government as a legislature, whether you join government as a body in the judiciary, whether you join government in the executive, you are rest assured that you will be wealthier than any entrepreneur who has spent 20 years doing business in this country. This is a menace that young people in this country, serious patriots in this country, must rise to look at the eye of what the bill and the mediated version